Which celebrity did you meet and found they were much kinder or ruder than you expected? Part 3. Alice Cooper was really nice to his fans. Paris Hilton once asked to sit with me and some friends outside of a Jack in the Box when she was plastered. She threw up on my shoes. 3 days later I ran into her at a concert and she full force pushed me over. Her sister apologized. Though. The sister was cool. Anthony Hopkins is supposedly a very nice guy. And rather patient as well. A distant acquaintance met him in a restaurant in LA a few years ago. He evidently had guests and stopped to talk to a fan regardless. Lucille Ball was allegedly very cold and distant. Another acquaintance who was a flight attendant at the time said she refused to speak directly to the flight attendant. And had her assistant do it for her. Triple H. I met him and got his autograph on my 12th birthday. It was in the peak of his heel run, so I thought he was going to be a super dick, but I wanted the autograph. We waited in like for an hour and a half. I got to the front and he asked me how I was doing and if I was having a good day. I said yes. Today is my birthday. Getting to meet you and get your autograph and go to the show tonight is the best birthday present I could get. He asked how old I was and how to spell my name. In the book it's a happy birthday that Redhead 11 the game Triple H. Ewan McGregor, I worked as his double for a brief period of time. Best way to describe him is as a paranoid narcissist. He was constantly accusing people of being obsessed with him. He was really nice to the children on the set though. So I'll give him that. But all of the adults on set kept their distance as much as possible. Naomi Watts, same film. She wasn't overly nice. Just incredibly down to earth and a regular human being. Rooter, Jimmy Fallon. Pre-current events. I regularly attended live tapings of late-night shows. And typically, during commercial breaks, the host does a Q&A with the audience or does other engaging activities with the audience. But Jimmy Fallon spent the entirety of each commercial break on his phone. He wasn't rude per se. He just doesn't seem to be the energetic, overly kind person he acts as on TV. Had a brief conversation with Alicia Silverstone asking if our apples were organic. Seemed nice. No, our apples weren't organic. Kelsey Grammer. Conversation over the phone about only having Dasani bottled water and not Evian. Could have been nicer. Worked as an extra on a Paul Walker movie. Never spoke to him. We were instructed not to start a conversation with any of the principal actors. When he was taking a break in between scenes, he was called over for another shot. He immediately jogged over to the spot. Later in the day, we were allowed over to the snack cart. Non-union extras get the leftovers I guess, and I nearly ran into Paul while walking there. He moved out of my way and didn't give any sort of comment. Never spoke to the guy. But he seemed like a solid dude. Approached Barbra Streisand once to ask her to sign a really nice picture I took of her, but she was very rude and screamed at me the whole time. All she seemed to care about was how I got into her house. Bobby Flay is a complete douche. Kinder, Jeffrey Rush. He's an absolute darling and loves to walk everywhere. He asked me for a cafe recommendation in our local area, so I gave him my friend's cafe and how to get there. He willingly walked for an hour in the summer sun to get there. I spoke to one of the production assistants and he will choose to walk over getting a lift or driving. Nicki Minaj is a stuck-up cunt. I've never dealt with anyone like her in my 10 years in the entertainment industry. Orlando Bloom, complete dick. He was filming Elizabethtown in Nebraska around 2005. He and his crew stopped at the only decent Mexican food place there was there. A couple of kids no older than 10 saw Legolas and got excited. One got up the nerve to ask for autograph, to which the dickweed cussed out the kids and asked his security to block/move them away. This is in a small town of 10,000 people. Good move, asshole. Instantly made everyone dislike him. Nick Offerman is a gem of a human being. He came to my small college in an Illinois suburb for a book tour thing, and I was in an a cappella group at the time, and we were rehearsing in the building where he was doing the signing, and he accidentally walked in on us and ended up staying to listen to a song. Complimented us. Hung out for 5 minutes and signed stuff for all of us. Super genuine. Funny guy. I saw Bryan Cranston at the Space Needle, didn't ogle but made eye contact. He knew I recognized him. But I didn't say anything. Oddly later that same day saw him in a nearby bar. He paid for a round for my friend and I as he left. Pretty sure he appreciated not bothering him. Super nice. Mr. T. When I was in high school, early 1990s, my friends and I worked at a golf course that was across the street from Mr. T's house. During lunch, my friends and I would walk 5 minutes to the downtown area for lunch. One day while we are walking to lunch, Mr. T was pulling into his gated driveway. We said, "Hey Mr. T," and waved at him. He asked us what we were doing, and after finding out we were going to lunch, he invited us to have lunch with him since that is what he was doing. We're sitting on his patio eating grilled chicken with Mr. T telling stories about growing up poor and working really hard to earn what he had. He talked a lot about family and its importance to him. It was pretty surreal. Mr. T was just the persona. He was actually a very funny, down-to-earth and truthfully empathetic guy. Every day after that, whenever we would see Mr. T, he would always say hi and take a few minutes to chat. And everything was always so positive. I always greatly respected him. After that day was at the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, and someone floated by me that I recognized but couldn't put a name to. I kept stealing glances at him to try and figure out who he was. When I finally figured out it was Ryan Gosling, he must have seen the realization on my face. Because he smiled at me, winked, and put his finger over his lips in a shhhh gesture. I think no one else had recognized him. He had a full beard. Left him alone. As you do. But I'll always remember that wink. Daniel Radcliffe was genuinely nice. He actually asked us if we wanted a picture with him. Probably because he saw how starstruck we were considering the odds of running into such a world-renowned movie star in our city. John Cena wasn't kind or mean. The man was tired after a red-eye flight from LA to Tampa. I think he was more pissed that I could see him. Joking aside, I didn't want to bother him, and he seemed relieved not to be assaulted by fans and paparazzi. Kristen Bell. It was through a Zoom meeting for USO/military collab. She was very kind and interested to hear and talk with servicewomen and the spouses. The only thing I didn't like about the whole thing was that someone asked her if she could sing and she said no. I think it was due to time constraints or something. So what happens? Someone wheels in their disabled child to ask Kristen to sing. So she obliged for the child. That was rude and dirty of them to do that. Sally Ride. The first American woman in space. And #X200B. I was in the 4th grade and I had a science project to do. My mom found out that Sally Ride would be in the tri-state area giving a lecture on her experiences as an astronaut. There were Q&A cards that were given at the beginning of the show, and my mom filled on out without me knowing. She wrote what would be the most interesting opinion/fact you could give a 4th grader who is doing a science project. She answered how she believed that there is no way we, humans, are alone in the galaxy. After the show, one of her backstage guys came up to me and my parents and said, "I bet you are the one here for a science project." I was pretty much the only kid at the lecture, and asked if I would like to meet Sally. We got VIP passes and I met her backstage. She was really kind and soft-spoken, and my mom has the photo of us together. I worked at a bar in Hollywood and served lots of random celebrities. The best experience was Gwendolyn Christie, Brienne of Tarth from GOT. She ordered a Guinness and handed me a $20. I went to get her change and she told me to keep it. She said she had worked in the service industry for years and knew how hard the job can be. She paid for each of her drinks the same way all night. She was incredibly kind and generous. Rare in Hollywood. By far the worst was a regular we had. Kevin Spacey. The guy was a total creep. He would bring in underage boys and try to convince us to serve them. I even kicked him out for cutting lines of coke on the bar top one random Sunday night. Dan Aykroyd, late 90s, backstage at a House of Blues concert in Toronto with my friend. Dan came down out of his trailer and introduced himself to us. He then asked if we were hungry and wanted something from the craft truck. Was super cool and helped with the munchies. I met Kirsten Dunst a few years ago. It was nigh at my favorite tiny restaurant on Austin's east side. She was there with her husband and standing next to me near the bar. I offered to buy them drinks since the bar was packed and I was closer to the counter. She very politely declined and told me she was pregnant, but no one knew yet at the time. I thought she was really sweet and we left her alone the rest of the night. Very petite. Second-hand story, a friend worked at the Reagan Library and Adam Sandler visited with his kids. She said he was really friendly and super accommodating with fans. He only asked they not bother or photograph his kids. Which is totally fair. I've worked in a couple presenting theaters, as in they don't produce their own shows, they hire traveling acts, in the box office. The theater I worked at in college had Jerry Seinfeld, which sold out in 25 minutes. By the end of my shift my cash out was $8,200 in cash alone, largest stack I've ever held. The staff had to have a special meeting before the event to discuss Seinfeld's rider. Because his rider included a clause that no front of house staff were allowed backstage while he was in the building. So we couldn't use the backstage bathrooms or the break room. We were also contractually required to avert our eyes if we happened to run into him. Most stupid bullshit ever. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was a nice, down-to-earth guy. Stevie-O is the coolest celebrity I've met. Real chill guy. Opeth are the worst. Taking up the only pool table at a bar and refusing to play anyone else. Thanks for watching.